What's up everybody, man, back. Welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to be doing another Playmates unboxing video. I almost forgot who made this one. It's Playmates. We're going to be doing another Playmates video. Today we are going to be unboxing and reviewing the Playmates Rodan 1956. Otherwise known as this little guy. Guess what, guys? I'm tired again. I'm so tired always, all the time. If you hear a bunch of background noise, it's because I'm right next to a laundry room. So you're hearing the laundry being done. Now I would normally wait until I'm not recording, or I'd wait for the laundry to be done before I start recording, but I don't have time. I don't know how much time I have. I'm gonna be in Canada soon on a very random and abrupt trip. So I gotta get stuff done now while I still can. Also, fun fact, this is the second video I've recorded after I graduated college, but the first of the two that I'm posting, which fits because this is also the second video I'm uploading after I graduated college, the first being that Godzilla 2014 video I just did. Please go check that out. It means a lot to me. For anybody who goes and checks that out, that video means a lot to me, so please consider checking it out. But that's fitting that this is the second video I upload post-graduation. This is also the second I recorded post-graduation. The first I recorded post-graduation will be the next video. All right, let's talk about Playmates Rodan 1956. First of all, just take a minute to appreciate the box art here, because this feels like we are not looking at a Playmates figure. This is a Bandai figure, right? This looks just like all of the Bandai figures I grew up with. It's even got a Bandai Godzilla on the side here. I believe that's the Bandai Godzilla 1999. I don't know why he's on the side here, but this is one of like the classic brandings for a Godzilla package. And I don't think this is the first time Playmates has used packaging like this. I believe their original run of classic Godzilla figures was like this as well, but it's just a weird thing to hold. It's just weird because it's not Bandai, but it looks like it. Also, big shout out Playmates. Oh my gosh. I think it is so cool that Playmates has gone back to revamp their classic Godzilla line. Now, I know this Rodan is very old. He came out maybe years ago, but I'm just opening him now. I just appreciate that they went back to touch up the classic line. They didn't just stop with the new stuff. They didn't just do the Monsterverse. They actually went back to the past, and they're doing ones that I don't think I've seen any American company do. I have never seen a classic Rodan 1956 brought to us by an American figure company. So I think it's really cool that they're doing that. And then obviously on the back there's a Jet Jaguar and a Gorosaurus, and I will definitely be talking about those guys as well. I just really appreciate that they did it. Also, quickly, before I get into the video, can you guys help me out? This shirt, right? This shirt that I'm wearing, this is Godzilla 1972, right? Or the 1968 design, you know, the one that continues from Destroy All Monsters to All Monsters Attack, and then Hedorah, and eventually Gigan. That's this design, right? It looks like it. It looks like it to me. That's what it looks like. But I was looking at it in the mirror today, and I saw the nose on it, and for some reason it made me think maybe it's the 1974 design, but I don't think it is. I think this is Destroy All Monsters, but maybe I'm wrong. Somebody want to help me out down below? Please do. All right, let's check out Rodan, who I keep gripping by his little neck. Let's get him out of here and talk about him. What the? I'll have to talk about that. Get it? Because he's a free bird. What is that? Why is his back all green? What is up with that? All right, so here we have Playmates Rodan 1956, fresh out of the box. And yeah, I definitely have been taken off by the coloring of this guy, because he's very gold on the chest and super green on the back with this stripe of gold. Don't recall that being a trait of the 1956 Rodan. I don't think I've ever seen that depicted before, so that really threw me off. But on the whole, I rather like aspects of this guy. He's not my favorite, certainly not my favorite, but I like aspects of him quite a bit. The thing that I like first and foremost is just the fact that he exists. I really like having a Rodan 1956, and I think on the basis of there is no affordable children's version of a Rodan 1956 that kids can pick up and play with, I think this figure automatically justifies its existence. I don't think it was executed as well as it could have been, but I think automatically it justifies its existence, and I do think it does have a place on shelves. This guy ran about $10 when I got him, so not that expensive, and you can kind of tell that he's a very cheaply made figure, but it doesn't matter a ton. Not really. These are going to be for kids. These Playmates ones are supposed to be played with by children. I don't think a kid's going to be that picky about it, but I am still going to break down my thoughts on him regardless. because I don't think he's perfect by any stretch. Starting out, and the thing that I really liked fresh out the gate here is the sculpt. I think he's got a great pose. I like his stance. I like the power behind it. I like that they do the very classic Rodan Showa era 56 thing of having the curved in wings. I think that's a great touch, especially this wing is very exaggerated. You can see he's hooked in. So he's not just open armed, just kind of T-posing. There is some dimension to him, which sets him aside from pretty much every other low end Rodan figure you could get, which are always just full stretch. I think that's cool that this one's not. I think it's neat. Maybe some people will be annoyed that he doesn't reach his full wingspan, but I also don't think that the 1956 Rodan really should. 1956's Rodan isn't particularly known for always being fully wide wingspan unless he's in the air. And getting into the sculpt here, that's where a lot of my positive reactions lie. I think he's got a nice head sculpt, although it is a little smooth and unrendered, classic Playmates, but I like the way that he has this kind of bumpy pattern transition into the more rigid pattern on the neck here that eventually leads into the chest and back piece. And I like the chest piece quite a bit. I like the dimensions to it. I like that he's got the folds on it. I like that he has that split line defining kind of where his abs are in a weird way. I think the wings look great as we transition from the more bumpy, rocky textures into the more smooth textures down at the bottom. A little bit feathery-esque down here at the bottom. I don't recall ever seeing that on the 1956 Rodan. I don't ever remember that really sticking out to me, that he has these kind of feathery details in him. But I like that they do the same thing on the back, where they have the more bumpy, rigid textures transition into the more smoother textures. As we continue down the body here, we go into the legs, which I think have a lot of good detailing. I like that you can see some kind of creases in the legs that almost look a little vein-esque, like where you can see where his like veins might be. They're good stuff. It's more of like folds where the suit head folds. And I like the bumpy rigidness of the feet. The feet themselves are all very well sculpted, and so are the little hands. I think Rodan's little hands look great. I like his little gripping hands. I like the little fingers on them. And I think this figure also does justice to the tail piece here. I think the tail piece looks great. I also like that they add the little spine on the back. But that's also kind of where the nice things I have to say about this figure end, because I can't really say it looks a lot like Rodan 1956 as much as I can say it looks like the Rodan 1956 presented in the PS4 Godzilla game. This looks like they made a figure based on the Rodan from the PS4 Godzilla game rather than a figure of the Rodan from the movie. I think one thing that really throws this off is the lack of teeth. There are no teeth in his mouth at all, so he's just got this very bird-esque beak, and it makes him look a lot less monstrous and a lot more smooth and unrendered. And while looking at the Rodan from the movie Rodan 1956, I don't really see the feathery-esque patterning on the tips of the wings here. When I look at the PS4 design, I do understand where these come from, as the PS4 design has some very defined rigid lines running down the wings. I'm not saying that those weren't there on the Rodan from the movie. They very well could be on the suit. I'm just saying they are more defined on the PS4 model than they are in the movie. A lot of the folds on this guy also correlate to folds specifically in the PS4 design, and even the pose reminds me a lot of the Rodan cutscene reveal you see in that PS4 game. So while I do really appreciate that we have this figure, I can't say he's completely that accurate. Now, two things that stick out to me that I don't love about this guy are the articulation and the paint job. As far as articulation goes, you literally only have 1 point. His head can spin all the way around 360. He is bendable enough to where you can make him look down or up, but you are going to cause creases and folds in this because he's obviously not meant to do those poses. So like there is going to be a split here. Another thing about it that I do like is that you can pinch his beak. I've always, and I've talked about this in tons of videos, always loved as a kid being able to make them roar, open their mouths wider, or close their mouths. That's something that I think they've done great here. Obviously, I'm not expecting them to have a hinge in the jaw so that he can, you know, like SH Monster Arts didn't even do that, so I wouldn't expect them to do it either. And so I appreciate what we have here. But the fact that there's nothing else, like I get that the wings, you can't really do much with them, and they're bendable enough. You can fold them, but I feel like I am kind of hurting the figure by folding him and by forcing him to bend like this. I feel like I'm doing a little bit of damage to him by doing that. I'm kind of forcing him into that position rather than him naturally going into it. So I get that you can't do a ton with the wings, especially on a figure like this, and as we'll talk about, that there really isn't a great solution for the soft vinyl plastic, which I'm also so happy they went with, because Playmates originally was doing those really hard plastic figures that felt like they would shatter when dropped. This does not feel like it will shatter when you drop it. If your kid throws this thing off a cliff, I think it'll be pretty much okay. But the fact that there's nothing in the legs, nothing in the feet, you can't do anything with the legs, you can't twist them or anything, as we'll talk about, other figures have figured out a solution to that problem. I don't know why he all of a sudden is having it, where he literally only has articulation in the head. This is very much like a posing figure. figure. Like you set him up on a shelf and leave him there. This feels less like a toy you would want to play with because of that. The other area where this guy just trips me up is the paint. Overall, he's got a really nice brownish red sheen to him, which goes great with the Rodan from the movie. The Rodan in the movie is a little more red than this, but overall, they captured the likeness very well. This kind of brownish red color. I think it looks great. I think the gold looks great on the fingers. That's all good stuff. It looks good on the beak. It's a little more exaggerated on his horns than it could be. The black eyes are fine because, of course, Rodan in the movie does have black eyes, although these black eyes in particular, something about them strikes me as the very PS4 design. And then actually, I really like the tongue. Not only does it have good sculpting, but I like the color of it. Where we run into issues is everywhere else. First of all, and this is just a quality control issue, mine has little gold paint splatter right here on the wing, which is unfortunate. Also really quickly, I just would like to touch on this detail. I appreciate that they textured the bottom of the tail here. That's good stuff. I wouldn't think they would go for that, and I'm glad they did. But here's where we run into some questions. The pure gold chest. Now I understand the reasoning behind it, because Rodan in the movie does have a fairly well-defined golden chest. But when you actually look at the design, his chest isn't gold. The ridges on it are. And I get that for a lower end figure, that's going to be a hard thing to paint. But this strikes me as a very cartoonish version of that Rodan. Like super exaggerated with the paint here on the chest being totally gold. The chest also is not nearly as sharp as it is in the movie. It looks a lot more dangerous in the movie than it does here. But all of this is forgivable. From the front, this whole thing is forgivable, and I wouldn't even really be addressing it. I'd probably be giving it unanimous praise in terms of paint, other than the little splotch here in the quality control issue. Had I not seen what they've done with the back, now I don't have any photo references of Rodan's back from the 1956 film, so maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe I am the one wrong. But I've played that PS4 game enough to know that I don't see a green and gold shimmer on his back every time I'm playing as him. And so that's what trips me up about it, is like, where does that come from? I can't find any photo references of it from the movie, and I also do not remember it looking like this in the PS4 game. So where did this come from? What, did they just think he was too basic? Did they not like how bland he was, just one color? That's Rodan, that's what he is. This green and gold back is such a strange and distracting choice that I do not very much appreciate it. I don't think it looks great. It really takes away from the Rodan figure, in my opinion. Again, maybe I'm dead wrong, and maybe this is very movie accurate and I've just never noticed it before, in which case, huge shout out to Playmates for going with something so obscure that not even I noticed it. But I don't love it. Even if the golden ridge was there and the green wasn't, if the golden ridge was there but the green wasn't, I'd still be mostly on board with it. I'd be like, oh, that's weird, and then I'd move on. But it's like really distracting, like even far away, it still looks like, oh, I can see it from far from far away. It's still weird. Getting into some Rodan comparisons here. Let's compare this 6-inch Rodan with his fellow 6-inch Rodan. This one is from Bandai, I believe Bandai Creations. This is the 2004 Rodan Final Wars, and I believe it was released in the early 2000s. When we set them next to each other, the Final Wars one looks to be a little more physically imposing. He's got a much wider wingspan, which is cool, and he looks to be a little taller. I also like the vibrant red on him, but of course that's just going with each design. That's more of an aesthetic thing for the movies themselves. They've done a better solution here on his back, where you see the more shadowing detailing here, and I think maybe the Rodan in the movie does have a bit blacker of a back. The shadowing would have worked here too. They could have given him some shadows in the back, because it's just a weird choice to go green. Side by side, I actually think this one looks a little better, a little more movie accurate than this one, but as a kid I can tell you this one was a lot of fun to play with. He had the full stretched out wingspan. You could fold the wings and it felt fine. Didn't feel like, I feel still like I'm hurting the figure by doing this, but I don't feel like I'm hurting it as much as I am with that one. That one feels a little more flimsy in the wings. His head can turn around, and they have a little solution for the feet here. The feet can turn. The feet are articulated as well. So there's more articulation in this older figure than there is in the newer version. But they actually do make a good duo, and they actually look very good side by side. I think these two complement each other super well. Going with a more modern interpretation of Rodan, this is the Jakks Pacific Rodan 2019. He is also in the 6-inch line, but I believe he stands more about like 4-ish inches. He's a bit smaller, as you can see, but his wingspan is way more imposing, way bigger, and Jakks really nailed the articulation in a way Playmates didn't. Now again, Jakks Pacific ran a bit more expensive. I believe this guy was about $20-something. This one's $10, so there is a quality difference there in and of itself. But the Jakks Pacific Rodan, who's again a little smaller, has even more articulation than the Bandai one that I just showed. His head can turn, which is cool. He's got articulated wings, which can fold in in and out. That's still fun to play with. I've had some good times just messing with this guy during Zoom class, so it's still a good distraction. And then his little feetsies can raise, and that's cool too, because he can get into his attack Ghidorah position. These two are clearly made by different companies. You could convince me easily that this is made by Bandai. This guy looks like he came fresh off the Bandai line. This is clearly a different company. Hard plastics versus soft plastics, paint's a little more intricate and more articulation, and you can just tell it's a different style of figure. Finally, to end off the Rodan comparisons, let's check out him with his adversary or friend, Godzilla. Here's a Godzilla who's Meta Rodan. I believe this is the Bandai Creations Godzilla 1972. I believe that's who this is. Is that the year that they claimed he's from? I think they said he was a smog monster one. Here they are next to each other, and you can see that Godzilla does stand a little bit taller, which he should. And again, these two look like they came fresh off the line together, and they look like they could either be friends or enemies depending on how you want to play with them. And they look great together. Again, they look great together. So this Rodan I really think is going to go great on shelves for collectors right alongside all your Bandai figures. As far as kids playing with toys, I don't know how particular children are these days with toys. I think maybe they have more video games and stuff to worry about than toys, but if you have a particular child who really wants a Rodan that reflects the Rodan in the 1956 movie, which maybe you've seen on HBO Max, it is on there if you want to check it out, I highly recommend him for that. Or if you just want a Rodan toy that's on the cheaper end, this is a good Rodan on the cheaper end. Overall, I think I'm gonna give this guy a 6 out of 10, just because he does immediately justify his existence right off the rip, just based on the fact that it is a Rodan 56 and we've never gotten one. I like the beak that it can close. I miss the teeth. I think that's a little weird without them. I like the pose and the sculpt a lot, but I miss having some articulated feet. I think that it's a really easy thing to add, that why didn't they add it? It does have some quality control issues, and then the paint is a little distractingly exaggerated for collectors. So I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. As I showed with the other Rodans, I think there are ways to do it better, but I also really appreciate this for what it is, and I'm glad I have it. I'm really, really glad I had it. This is probably the Playmates figure that I was most excited for around that time when they announced their next lineup of figures. This is probably the one I was most excited to get, just because I felt he was the most unique. And I really like the 56 Rodan. I feel like that design does not get a lot of love, so I'm glad to see him here. All right, that's gonna do it for this one, guys. I want to give a huge thank you to all my patrons on Patreon. I really appreciate your guys' support. If you want to check out the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below, where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. And it really does go a long way towards supporting the channel, making sure I can keep doing videos like this for you, making sure I can even buy these figures in the first place to review. So it really does help out a lot. All right, that'll do it for this one, guys. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man out.